Let's talk about some of the harsh realities of homesteading and preparing land for agricultural use. Now, a lot of you folks out there want to prepare land for agricultural use to be self-sufficient. Some of you want to start farms for profit, and others of you are looking for something to do in retirement. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. What we're going to talk about today is the harsh reality of homesteading, in the sense that if you are going to do this and you're seeking to profit, it is actually extremely expensive. Now, I'm not going to say this stuff to discourage you. I want to give you a certain level of reality so you can plan appropriately. Because what you may not be aware of is that there's a lot of homestead groups and conferences and events that are really designed to placate your needs for homesteading information, but not necessarily launch you into a productive or financially sound homestead environment. In fact, there's a lot of farms for sale out there where today, if you want to be a farmer, you could simply just buy a failed farm. But again, I don't want failure for you. I want economic opportunity, self-sufficiency, and true independence. What good is it that for you to get up and going on a farm, a homestead or a small estate, and then not be able to pay the bills, not be able to provide for yourself? Now, we don't need to talk specifically about what's happening economically in the United States and around the world. The mainstream media is talking about food shortages, talking about food quality being very poor, and even plastics in our food. I don't need to tell you about that. You already know that. In fact, you've probably known that long before it showed up in the mainstream media. But you've got to ask yourself, if the mainstream media is talking about it now, how bad is it really? It's probably 100 times worse, because again, the mainstream media very often sets up the opportunity for advertising or solutions. And if you're one of those people who don't want to eat fake meat, you'd rather have real animals that have been taken care of, that have lived a good life, that had one bad day in their life, then again, that's why you are looking at the homestead. That's why you're looking at establishing a small farm. If you're looking at the one day when the food on the shelf isn't there, so for example, you go to the grocery store today, have you noticed how wide the shelves are when it comes to beans? You'll see beans, canned foods on the shelves. And you know, it used to be tomato canned foods were on one shelf, and then you'd have the regular canned food on another shelf. Well, now you have a shelf with both products on it, and it's like one brand can wide, and it's one can stack tall. Now, there's beans on the shelf, but they're full of salt. They're full of a lot of extra stuff that's really not necessary. It's a small quantity compared to what it was even 5 years ago. And one day there will be a very tiny shelf of beans. And what will you do? Again, that's why people want to do the small farm. That's why they want to do a homestead. But if all you're doing is dreaming about it, then you're not getting the results that you're looking for. So I'm going to speak very frankly about the opportunity, but I'm also going to speak very honestly about what is necessary. So what you'll notice behind me, if you've been following this particular journey, on this property, we've used forest mulching to clear the wooded area and clear the trees out. Now, if we were to build a house on this property, we'd still need to put in a septic, electric, and some kind of well. In order to put those things in, we need a level area to put the home. Now, you can put a home on a very small footprint, but if you're in an agricultural environment and you're going to have garden crops and you're going to have animals and you're going to have those types of things, then you can't be deep out in the woods, because those items need light. Plus, your home site needs light so that you don't end up with mold and such on the property or on the building itself. Here's what's important about that. While we used forest mulching to clear this particular piece of land, we did so because this land may be idle as a campsite for a few years before it is turned to an actual home site, before a house is built on it. Now, at any time we can build a house on it. It costs us nothing, because the trees are very low quality trees. They could be easily mowed down. If you had timber on this land, you could have timbered it, but in either way, the land is stable between how it was and where we're trying to get it to be. Now, why did I share with that? Because a lot of folks that I've talked to and have written in questions, and I know the channel here is growing pretty quickly. I would like to get it up over 1,000 subscribers, and if you could help me with that, I'd appreciate it. It'll allow me to spend more time to give you valuable information and insights. But a lot of folks didn't think, they thought you should just come back here and bulldoze everything. They're small, weak trees, they have low value anyway. Why not just bulldoze everything and prepare a home site? Well, if that home site is going to be built in 2 to 3 months after the land is cleared out, then yes, bulldozing it out is fine, but then we end up with giant piles of trees that are usually get burned, where in this approach, we're actually getting biomass that is being incorporated into the soil. Either way, they're going to scrape the topsoil off. The difference is when they scrape this topsoil off, it's going to be highly nutritious. It can be turned a few times and then spread back on the land after we've excavated for the building foundation or the septic or whatever else that needs to be put in. Both paths get you to the same result, but one path produces more resources than the other. This is what you have to focus on. You will not see these homesteaders talk about this because, again, they're going to talk about the specialty of getting hogs on the land or getting goats on the land, or the specialty of getting your main house and your market garden in place. And they're pretty much going to start with a level playing field, perhaps even a farm that is distressed or going out of business, or 5 to 10 acres in a property area. I'm still going to concentrate on 5 to 10 acres around the house itself in this particular design, but I've created a design that is flexible for both the time frame and it produces the maximum amount of resources on the way to the final objective of the property itself. We want the property creating biomass. We want the property creating agricultural, like deer, for example. My inventory of deer counts is twice as high as it was before we started clearing things out. So I did an inventory of the property and we had a count of deer, barely had any deer, a lot of signs of deer. Then we had the initial trails put in. I saw the deer count start to rise up. I was still seeing does, not many bucks. But now that we've got some of these clearings come together and some of the pick has come up, now we've got deer on the land. Now, if you were going to raise goats, and I told you I was going to have some goats on this particular property, and you wanted goats and you thought goats is the only thing, well, guess what? A deer and a goat process the same. The difference is you didn't have to feed the goats. You have to feed the goats. You didn't have to feed the deer. Okay, so you can have the deer population cultivated through the habitat expression and have a benefit equal to that of having the goats on the property, even before you can have the goats on the property. Now, I do hear people shooting out there, and there are people who are hunting across this land that shouldn't be out here. That's a fact of life. But again, we're sharing that deer resource, and the deer are going to come to the most habitat-friendly area in order to graze and grow, and this is that. So what am I getting at here? I'm getting at that you can have these ideas in your head, you can be dreaming about your farm, you can be dreaming about your homestead, but not until you put it on paper, not until you write out a plan, even if it's just a single piece of paper, not until you write out a plan will you know whether you're moving in the right direction. And as soon as you write that plan, you're going to start seeing things fall into place. So for a particular piece of property, you may have 2 or 3 plans. You could clear the land immediately and put up a house. You could clear part of the land and use it as recreational land and then put up the house later. You could clear only a small portion of the land and start using it for agricultural purposes before you have a house. Maybe you put in a temporary house or a mobile home, for example. There are phases as far as good, better, and best. If you just put that up in your head, nothing is going to happen. I don't mean to sound rude a lot of times when I get comments from folks on the videos, and I do encourage you to send in your questions because it helps me adjust the content to your needs more than kind of what I want to talk about. I want to focus on your needs. But sometimes in the comments, they know exactly what they need to do. They know the steps, they know what's going on, and I say, great, send me a copy of your written plan. Send me a high-level picture of your plan. Send me one paragraph that tells me what the hell you'd like to have accomplished. A user story, something that describes the end result. And I hear crickets. I hear nothing. They'll comment on a post, they'll follow me onto other message boards, they'll send me emails, and they'll have nothing but words to say, but no plan. Now those words are not a plan. Those words are what get you excited about the idea, get you excited about the topic. Now maybe I think differently if I had books to sell you or if I had courses that you could come in and take. But again, if you don't have a written plan, we cannot make it happen. So my background is project management, risk management, land projects. And if you can package it in a project, That's going to be your deliverables, your schedule, what resources you're going to need, what kind of outcomes will happen along the way, kind of a timeline. If you can package it in a plan, you can get it done. In fact, the universe will bend over backwards to make sure you have the resources you need to make the project happen. But if all you're going to do is talk, and I've been guilty of this myself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. No, I'm going to write a plan and then I'm going to talk about what we're going to do. So I've talked on this land that the trails are cut in such a way to allow us immediate recreational access to the land. Hiking, mountain biking, camping. We got a camping trip set up for August. We're going to camp out here. Immediately, I could do that from the land. But the trails are also set up in such a way to allow access to the land, so that I can start looking at where we're going to put in the well, where are we going to have the water lines for the agricultural use, where are we having solid ground such as ridges where we can drive across the top of the ridge, and where do we have intersection points where we have to cross a ditch or some low ground. What's the elevation from the beginning of the property, from the highest point on the property to the lowest point on the property? All these things go into a plan. The plan becomes a place to store that information. That information is then catalog. How much is it going to cost? We're looking at right now putting some cabins on this property, 16 feet wide, 40-foot long cabin. That's 512 living square feet. There's a porch on the front. It would be equivalent to maybe a 2-bedroom tiny house. And what is it going to cost to put on that property? Now, there's more to it than just what is it going to cost. So let's explore that plan. Okay. I make these videos for certain viewers. I want to make sure that they get what they need. That plan means that we need a level spot to drop that 40-foot long building 16 feet wide. Now, do we have a level spot to drop and I was going to turn the camera there, but it's not going to move. Do we have a level spot to drop basically to have a 20-foot by 40-foot footprint? Well, we do have a level spot. We have lots of level spots for it, except we don't have a level spot in the orientation that we want to put it in. Now, what do I mean by that? Solar orientation is critical for your housing. You don't just drop a house on a property. See, you could do it the easy way, clear off a piece of land, throw a house on it, live in the house, everything's great. But what about your solar aspect? What about your heating efficiencies on the property? What about the thaw and freeze cycles? What about the shadow the house casts? All these things need to be looked at on paper before you drop the property. Now, I have a map of this particular location that I'm at, and I have my sun angles on it, so I know that I can scrape off a pad and put that particular house. In fact, I could put 4 of them next to each other in a north-south orientation. We're in the northern hemisphere, mid-Atlantic United States, and I know I could drop 4 of them together in an area and actually have 4 cabins in that orientation. Now, some people are going to have a fire pit in the middle and have cabins in like a star formation pattern. But again, I'm looking for energy efficiency. I'm looking to maximize the resources I have. If the sun is already going over the sky and it's got heat energy and solar energy, so I'm going to put the houses on the north part of the property and leave the level spot in front of the houses for gardens, market gardens, for orchards and fruit trees. In fact, the orchards and fruit trees can be behind the house because their elevation is higher. So if I have a high elevation of trees, 1-story house in the middle and then gardens in the front, now my sun can come over all that. But before I can land those cabins, I need to have flat level spots. What do I have to do before I have the cabin, the flat level spots? Well, I need to have access to those spots. Now, I already have access. The truck's right there, and then you can drive this way. And in order to put in well, I had to have a 21-foot wide path or road in order to get the well in place. So that's taken care of. But my point being is that your plan becomes a description of the outcome. It becomes the characteristics or requirements that make that a satisfactory outcome, and then the steps or activities that have to happen before you get to that outcome. That is the plan. That's how you put together a plan. Now, you might have one plan for cabins and one plan for an actual home. You might have another plan for buying a house near the property. I see this so many times. Somebody buys a piece of property and they dream and they struggle and they're frustrated about putting a house on that property because they want to put the perfect house on that property. Yet the house right next door went up for sale that was good enough, already existed, already had a well, already had a septic, already had electric, and it's physically attached to the property you own. Why not just buy that house? Come on, guys. Buy that house, live in that house, and you can still build the other one, but you are immediately on that property so you can start running animals, so you can start getting more use out of the property, so that you can start establishing a base. Now, if you live in the house that's next to the property that you own and later build your own house on your own property that you own, you now have two houses. One house you can rent out as a rental property and take rental deductions over time, depending on your situation. This could mean lowering your taxes. It could also mean revenue coming into your farm business that is not related to the weather. Because as you notice back here, there is no way in hell that I'm going to be able to grow a market garden back here. And that's why I'm in a cooperative relationship with a local farm that's nearby here to grow a market garden on their property. Because they have a nice field out in the open. It's got a nice 8-foot barrier fence around it. That's the other videos. I'm volunteering at that site to grow a market garden because I don't have a place to grow a market garden. If I could make a place, I've got 25 acres here. I've got space in the city. I've got access to 17 acres here and there. There's land for sale for cheap. Okay, it's not all for cheap, but I could get the land. But again, so you have the timeline, and this is why the project plan is so important. You have the timeline of objective. You have alternate options that you can do. What are the things that can be done? And then for each of the paths of these options, what are the critical steps? Now, these critical steps will start to overlap, and then that becomes what's called a critical path. So if the first thing you need to do is learn how to make a plan, if you know how to make a plan, it works whether you have a small homestead or a big homestead, whether you have a small farm or a big farm. It works whether you build the farm yourself or you buy a farm that already exists. It doesn't matter if you have farming partners, such as family members have come together to form a farm, or you're farming on your own. The critical path is the plan or the skill to know how to set a clear objective, to identify the characteristics of a successful outcome, and then to make I'm going to try not to use profanity, folks, but then to make a list of what needs to happen to make that plan come to fruition. Now, you can make a more complex plan, but you don't have to get started. Now, once you get started and commit to a plan, yes, you're going to have a building schedule. You're going to have a list of contractors. You're going to have permits. You're going to have the people you hire to do certain work. Now, I always mention hiring people, and a lot of folks will say, well, I just don't have the money to hire somebody. Again, there's a time and money relationship here. You can spend the next 3 years learning how to raise hogs, or you can go work for somebody who raises hogs today to gain both experience and income raising hogs. Okay, that works for everything. I am working on a farm, not this weekend, but there'll be a weekend coming up where I will be processing rabbits. I do not own rabbits. I'm in a cooperative relationship with a farmer who already has rabbits, and I'm giving my labor in exchange for a few rabbits. And you might be saying, well, Justin, if you did the math on that, you're not even getting minimum wage. You could go out and you could work and you could buy yourself some rabbits and you could raise the rabbits at your house, and you could, yeah, a year from now, I'd have all that set up. That's great. But today, I can show up when I'm told to show up and wear my fancy little rubber gloves and bring my fancy little knife with me, and I can help process rabbits. They already got an ice machine. They already got the little hooks to put their feet on. I could be processing rabbits now and learning at the same time. Remember, critical path. I still need to learn whether I own the rabbits or I'm working for somebody else. Oh, excuse me. See how you get me all worked up? My allergies are going to start going crazy. But do you understand what I'm saying here? Do you want to do this now? The economy's already messed up. There's already shortages at the grocery store. Do you want to do this now, or do you want to wait another year and wonder? Now, I want to tell you a quick little story about a friend of mine who did not even notice the Great Depression happen. Now, he's long since passed, And this gentleman's family never noticed the Great Depression happen. Now, they were smack dab in the middle of the Great Depression, and the farms around them failed, but they did not notice the Great Depression came because, one, they were living frugally up front. Number two is they were creating surplus from day one. So the biggest problem that happened during the Great Depression was that the grocery stores couldn't get food because a lot of farms were going out of business, and so there wasn't any food to get available. Now, that's in general, but in his neighborhood there was food together because his family grew the food. And so they were growing the food, selling their surplus, but it meant they fed themselves first. There was also relationships where there were other farmers that lost equipment and materials to deliver food to market. So they would actually consolidate, they'd buy it wholesale from the other farmer, consolidate the food, sell it to their customers. The biggest thing that helped them not worry about the economy, not worry about the Great Depression, not worry about people losing their farms, is that they had customers. Not that they were farmers, okay? That they had customers, and their customers could afford to pay them in advance for a lot of food and vegetables, which really made them what's called a captive farmer. And so they had a small handful of clients that essentially financed their lifestyle during the Great Depression. They already had a very frugal lifestyle, so it's not like they were off. Well, it's kind of hard to believe, though. The guy was poor at one time, but he didn't think it was poor because they lived good. They had good food. They had good things. But it set them up so that after the Great Depression, that they were able to be much more financially stable, and him and his brothers and stuff were very stable. But my point being is that they didn't have a booth at the farmer's market. They didn't have a scheme to get people in a CSA. They had 5 or 10 customers in a program. Now, it could be a CSA. Community-sponsored agriculture is a really good thing. But again, they had their customers. They grew for their customers. They grew for their family. They tracked the numbers, and they did what was necessary up front. If they needed more veg, they would go find somebody that had the veg. They wouldn't go open a new field and wait 6 months. They'd go find somebody that had the veg. They bartered and built on existing relationships, and it worked out really well. They were able to be in a situation where that didn't matter what the economy did around them. Now, I noticed I said they didn't hope and dream. They didn't think about it. They didn't watch 50 YouTube videos. There's no YouTube videos back then, but I don't know if you guys are aware, but Rodale Press and a lot of these other companies were not the first ones to build out magazines and articles. And all the way back to Harper's Daily, there was you could mail order books on how to be a farmer. That's like the first business opportunity type of thing. So it's not like there was a shortage of research. They could have spent all their time learning, all their time on the interwebs, or whatever the equivalent was for the 1917 through 1923. Damn. Get me all worked up. So let me give you a summary, okay? Because I'm gonna have to spit here real soon. I got some sinus problems going on here. What can you do right now to move you significantly closer to a written plan? And you know that's a trick question, because what you can do is actually have a plan. Now, your first plan is probably not going to work out really well. That's just because that's the way Murphy's Law works. That's just the way the world is. And you know, for some of you guys out there, you've gotten in a situation where there's others that don't want your plan to succeed. They're going to tell you, you're kind of silly to go back to the woods. You won't be no redneck. Somebody told me my driver's license today. They said, you know, you got such a baby face in your driver's license. And they say, you look different than on your driver's license. I said, I know, I'm incredibly much more handsome in person. And it was really, they thought I looked like a redneck hick. And I was like, thank you very much. But you know what? Ultimately, there's going to be a lot of people who have opinions about what your plan is. So come up with more than one, okay? Now, the opinions of people like your CPA, your existing farmers, or other people in your community that you trust, that have good knowledge, you want to follow those opinions. And you want more than one plan to show them so you can get feedback and they can help you tune that plan. And again, if it's in writing, it's easier for other people to understand. But you got to understand, there are people out there that are going to say you're crazy. There are people out there that say, can your own food? You go to the grocery store and get yourself some food. Why would you put it in a can? Again, power outages, natural disasters, economic upheaval, government shutting down the entire economy for COVID. There's a lot of legitimate reasons why you might want to do that, other than just it's relaxing and entertaining for some people. In my case, going and working at a farm. Why do you want to go work at a farm? Can't you afford to buy vegetables? Yes, I can, but I do know that the farm-raised vegetables are much higher quality. I'm getting them sooner. They're not sitting on a tractor trailer somewhere going to market, and ultimately quality. I got probably 24 eggs in the truck here that literally came out the chicken this morning. You can't get more fresh than that, other than waiting there outside the chicken bum, waiting for that the egg to come out and eat it right away. I know the eggs in the store sit longer. The cholesterol levels are different. The nutrient value, it doesn't have as high minerals. So again, I'm going to trade some of my time to gain the skills instead of waiting until I can have chickens. Instead of petitioning the city that one day they might give me permission to feed myself. Again, written plan. Again, give yourself permission and start now in your local community. Again, if one plan doesn't work out, have another plan. The good thing about multiple plans is that critical path, you'll start seeing the steps you need to take are overlapping, and then you can take the step that works for all three plans. You don't have to commit on a plan right away. Now, once you do commit on a plan, then you go full force into that plan. So I want you to have short and focused plans so you can go full force and then celebrate the success of completion. So, August, we're celebrating this by having a campsite out here, having camping out here. I actually have up in the corner, the son and I, 2 weekends ago or 4 weekends ago, I don't remember, we were out here building stuff. And I've been out here hiking. I know some of the neighbors are out here hiking and stuff too. We're enjoying this thing as is because I had a plan that had a specific phase. And once that plan was done, I'm like, done. Can work on the next plan. So I am trying to encourage you, but it isn't as easy as just writing a plan and it magically happened. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Some work has to happen before others. Some work is pretty generic and it works for everything you're trying to accomplish. And some work is going to be, you know, it's not going to feel real well doing it. I want to encourage you, but you got to do something. If you're sitting around here and I see 20, 30 comments from you on a YouTube video, or you're contacting me and you can't give me a paragraph that tells me what you'd like to achieve, how the hell do you think I'm going to help you? How do you think anybody's going to help you? And if I say to you, I need a one-page plan, and you can't give me that one-page plan in 24 hours, then I'm going to have to discount your intention, because you don't really have a plan. You don't know what you're going to do. And if you don't have a plan, you think somebody, I know I got a plan for you guys. I got a plan for so I don't really, it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't really bother me that some people don't have a plan as much as I'm disappointed that they're not going to get the results that they're looking for. But if I have enough people without a plan, I could just keep creating videos for you and then create videos that advertisers would like, and then YouTube will pay me to entertain you. And I don't mind doing a little huck and shuck and make you happy so that YouTube pays me money. But I'd much rather hear about your success story, about that farm that you've set up, and your son and your daughter, and they've got this experience outside, and they see where their food comes from. Or maybe you and your hunting buddies have this property out in the middle of nowhere, and you weren't sure what you could do with it, and now you got a cabin out there, and you're spending weekends out there bonding and building up that brotherhood. Maybe you've got a property that has a small little lake, and now that it's cleared up around the lake, you and your friends are out there with your boys and your girls, and you're out there having a good time and having this, the rest of the world is burning around you, but you and your family are safe, you and your family are happy, you and your family are still instilling those lessons in those children. I want to hear your success stories that are bigger than the next YouTube video. I want to hear your success stories that are so powerful. And by the way, they might not be powerful to anybody but you. But I want to hear about that success, because that's what I thrive on. Because I know as soon as you write down a plan, it's already started. As soon as you have two options and you're open to a third option, but you're really working hard on those two options, and now you've gotten to the point where you committed to one option, it's already done. It's the intention. It's the law of attraction. It's the putting the prayer up before God, and then understanding that He'll make it happen for you. Actually, God's not going to make it. God doesn't grant wishes like that. I don't want to get into that kind of stuff here. But basically, if you put your intention into the universe and demonstrate that you're going to be a good steward of the resources that you have, there's no reason why more resources wouldn't show up into your advantage. So it's not like the gift is already there. Your intention and drive forward towards that objective is what makes it possible. So I'm going to leave it right there. I think I've spent a bit of time. I welcome your comments below. I'm going to get something to drink before I cough myself to death. And I just want to share this with you because I want you to succeed. We are already in a recession. The U.S. government owes $130 trillion in unfunded liabilities. If you look at what that buys, that is all of the gross production of every country on the planet, plus 2/3 of a planet. For 120, they ain't paying that off anytime soon. Inflation's already here. Currency may fail. It may get worse. But then again, you could opt out of it all by having a different plan. Are you going to follow their plan, or are you going to have your own plan? Comments below. I'm looking forward to seeing you next video. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, where we help you transform your land into maximum utility value, build that abundance that you deserve, achieve those experiences and memories and that lifestyle you deserve. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.